All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our internship panel. So we're really excited to welcome all of our guests today. Just a couple, regular housekeeping stuff. The biggest thing right now, Night Hacks. It is in 2 weeks. You can still register. nighthacks.org. That's all you need. October 9th to 11th. We are actually currently doing a Nintendo Switch and Super Mario 3D All-Stars giveaway on our Instagram. Just look up Night Hacks on Instagram, and that's all you need. Or nighthacks.org/Instagram, or you want a link tree. It's easy to find. And yep, like I said, hackathon's coming. 36-hour invention marathon. Build a project with your 3 closest friends or your newest closest friends, and compete for prizes, attend workshops, and overall, it's going to be a really fun time. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of people there because we're all really excited. I've been working on this for too long. And we're just excited to get it over with. Even though it's virtual, it's going to be fantastic. Looking forward to seeing you guys there. And here are our links: Discord, Instagram, Facebook, or Linktree. Just /Linktree has all of our links on it. If you're not on the Discord, join the Discord. nighthacks.org/Discord. That is where most of our communication happens, and you can kind of get in touch with the community. And today is our internship panel, and next week we're going to be having our introduction to the MERN stack, but I think we might be doing the Fern stack instead. Dylan, if you want to talk about that for a second.
There'll be an announcement on the specifics. For the moment being, let's just keep going with what do you MERN.
Cool. So the MERN stack is definitely like a really powerful stack of frameworks and technologies to use for web development, and it's just really important to actually understand the uses of it, what it does, and it's just a very powerful tool, or set of tools. I mean, here's a plug for the virtual Hangout spot. This is on Discord. You're free to go in whenever you want, share your screen, stream a game, or just hang out with people. We can play Among Us sometime because Among Us is really fun, and I am addicted to that game, and I know a lot of you guys are too. And membership and dues. So make sure if you're not an official member of the club, you can fill out the form at nighthacks.org/membership. Pay dues. It's only $10 for the whole academic year. And also, if you want to be added to our resume bank, if an employer ever reaches out to kind of gauge opportunities, you can add your resume to nighthacks.org/resume. And that is it. I didn't want to take up too much of you guys' time. Without further ado, please welcome our panelists. So if you guys want to kind of go one by one and introduce yourselves, and let me stop sharing my screen. If I can do that, I'll share. Stop sharing. There we go. All right, the floor is yours.
You want to give us an order?
You guys can kind of go as you guys want. One by one. I'm not gonna kind of pick anyone to go first.
All right, well then I'll go first. Hi, my name is Keenan. I interned at Amazon over the summer on the Amazon Prime live events publishing team. I had a really good time there, and as opposed to a lot of people might say that Amazon works you a lot, I had a really good experience, and I'm wanting to share that right with you today. And I think I have some good insights that I can provide you, and I'm open to any questions. So that's me.
I can go next. Yeah. If no one else, what's it called? Yeah, my name is Dylan. I worked at Microsoft last summer as a software engineering intern, and I currently work at a company called Constant Contact. Think like MailChimp, but a lot smaller. As a software engineering intern there too, and I've also worked at a few other places as an intern, like small business, really tiny startup, and a military contractor. So really interesting bunch. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Hello, I am Camilla, or Camila, whichever pronunciation is easier. I interned with Microsoft this past summer on the Xbox Studios group, specifically on the quality team. I'm a junior in CS right now. I also immigrated to this country when I was younger, so I had zero knowledge of anything CS, let alone English language knowledge. So yeah, if you guys have any questions regarding like starting out, I've been there, done that. It's hard. Yeah, next person.
Hey, I'm Anthony. Okay, good. I think my mic works, I hope. I also interned with Microsoft this past summer, and the previous summer before that, I interned with the National Science Foundation over in Germany. So it was like a international internship, and I've interned at local company Katmai, and I've done 2 internships now with LSQ. I'm actually interning with them this fall. So.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brian. I interned at the Royal Bank of Canada and some other places. I have some startup experience, and I am a PM, so I'm here to speak about my PM experiences for anybody interested in learning about that.
All right. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Really appreciate it.
One last note. I was an Explorer intern, which is an internship for freshmen and sophomores specifically. So I can answer questions specifically regarding that. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Camilla, you know what I'm going to say after this workshop when I speak with you.
All right, so those are our panelists for today. Again, thank you guys for coming out. So we're gonna start off with some general questions, but here is the link if you guys wanna post your own questions, directing them towards a specific person or general as a whole. So go into the Slido link that's in the chat, and the code is 73658, and you should be able to ask questions, and you can upvote other questions if you also have the same question or want to see that answered. And we'll kind of go off of the rating system because we don't want to get, overflowed with questions and not be able to get to all of them. So, as we kind of start thinking about questions, some open-ended questions I want to give to all the panelists. So some of you already talked about like your internships and, where you were. If you want to kind of give a better description on like what your role was specifically, as well as, what was your interview process like? How did the whole process go from start to finish, from application to getting the interview to getting the offer?
I can talk a little bit about there's a couple things that you talked about there, Harold. I can talk about like how I got internships at and I think that going to the recruiting events and making friends with the recruiter is really helpful. I don't think that I would have gotten my internships if I just would have like cold applied on the website. I've gotten a couple internships, and they've all been from like making friends with somebody that represents the company that comes to UCF, because I think that's like a sure way to get an interview. And I think that if you make friends with them and they like you, then they're going to put in a good word for you at their company. And I feel like that can really help opposed to like only applying online.
Yeah, I kind of had a really similar experience. So like what Brian said, like when I was a freshman, I cold applied like everywhere, and that was like the primary way that I would try to like get an internship somewhere. And I think it was like understated how many like applications you actually end up like sending out at times. Like even after you have experience, how many you'll send out. Like I sent out my freshman year, like I would probably say it's like 250, maybe like something like that. And I maybe got like 2 offers from that. So like cold applying, even though like you kind of have to do it, like the only offers I got were from people that I actually met at a career fair. So like you think about the numbers there, like I sent that many resumes out, and I only heard back from people that I actually spoke to in person. And I think like to an extent that was like the connection that I made with them. Like when I was there, I was able to like kind of sell myself more because there wasn't anything on my resume, but they didn't really care as much about what was on my resume. They cared more about like me talking to them. Kind of the same thing like for Microsoft's interviews like last like November when I was doing them. They were pretty like, there was like a lot of behavioral questions, like more than I expected. And I feel like they weighed that more. Like in my first round, I like completely failed the interview. Like not failed it, but they do a technical part, and I did really poorly on it, but I just kind of like connected with the interviewer, and we had like a really good conversation. So I think it's kind of the similar, like the connection with the person that you're talking to and the recruiter and then the interviewer and stuff are like kind of slept on.
Yeah, just want to add on to like some additional things. My 3 out of my 4 internships I got through referrals. Like I only got, the first one I got was actually from National Science Foundation, was offered through UCF, and only 6 people applied, and 5 people could go. And one of the person that got accepted dropped out. So basically everybody who applied got accepted. But all other internships I got, I had a referral going in. Like the first one, I got a referral through like a Discord server for UCF. Like someone just said, hey, my company I work at's looking for interns. Message, send me your resume. I did, he referred me. Microsoft and LSQ. LSQ is a local fintech company and they love hiring interns. So definitely if you're looking for an internship, definitely reach out to LSQ. They definitely like getting interns from UCF in the surrounding area. But with Microsoft and LSQ, I had referrals going in. And another big thing, like to add on what Dylan said, is behaviorals are like really important. Obviously solving leak code too, but like connecting with your interviewer and stuff like that is going to be really crucial in your interviews.
Yeah, I can go now. Specifically about that last point about behaviorals and interviews. I applied to Amazon just like through the website. I didn't have like any referrals or anything. They just like gave me their OA, and there's 3 parts to it. You do all 3 parts as long as you get through them and do well. They'll give you the next part, and then after you do the third, you get like a virtual interview, which was only like 45 minutes, but it's like 1 technical question and a couple of behavioral questions. But they also place like pretty high bar on behavioral questions because they have Amazon's leadership principles, which are things that they, there's 14 of them, and you have to kind of like memorize them or at least get to know them well enough to kind of formulate stories based on those leadership principles to show that you exhibit them. And I think that I didn't do as great on the technical side, but I did better on the behavioral, and I think that is what helped me get in as well.
Yeah, a lot of companies are not just looking for like interest and passion in tech, but an actual culture fit of like, are we happy with this person like coming in and working with us every day? Because the time you spend going to work is a lot, a huge portion of your life. So they just want to make sure you fit in with their actual culture. Otherwise, neither side is going to be happy. And I feel like that part can definitely get overlooked a lot of time, since a lot of people just focus on grinding leak code over and over and can forget about the other part when they're equally as important. Yeah.
I think Dr. Smolanski has a good term for that, what Camilla was talking about. He calls it the beer test. Would I want to go and get a beer with this person after the interview? It's a good indicator of that.
That test is so prevalent that my second internship at a local company, the manager was looking for interns again, and she's like, Anthony, this person applied, and like named the UCF student. Are they cool? Can I get a beer with them? And I said yes, and they just hired them on the spot. They didn't even like bother to interview. Like, cool, let me get them in. So it's crazy important. And if you're worried, I wanted to add something else. I got my Microsoft referral from another Hispanic. So if you are like any type of group, like join groups like this, participate in clubs, make friends. I was in the Hispanic Society of Engineers Club, SHAPE, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. I made a friend, another computer science student. Interview season came around. He's like, yeah, man, I'll look out for my fellow Cubans, stuff like that. So join these types of clubs, people look out for each other. And if you're ever in a position to give referrals to friends and everything, definitely do that too. It's a really important.
Yeah, Melanie, anyone can join SHEP. That's the Society Hispanic Professional Engineers, really long name. SHEP, anyone can join. You don't even have to be Hispanic at all. While the main purpose is to support and advance Hispanics and Latinos in tech. You don't have to be any of that. It's welcome to everyone.
Yeah, I can say that
Just
the people,
like my hacks.
some of the people in Shep were like really, I got to know a couple of them pretty well, and they were like really wanting me to join the club. Unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of time in the last semesters then, but they were like encouraging me to join, and I'm white.
I actually put Shep UCF's website down in case anyone else is interested. I think the one thing about Shep that people like, kind of like think like, oh, I need to be Hispanic, or even if I'm not, I won't feel as welcome. No, they welcome everyone. It's kind of just putting an emphasis on, diversity and inclusion for Hispanic and Latinos. But it's definitely open to everyone. Some people on the leadership teams, executive boards, like those people, they're not all Hispanic. It's just kind of a focus, not a requirement. And so let's start looking at the Slido, and I see like kind of the top question has been, when is the best time to start seeking internships? And someone can take that, but that's a very, very simple answer.
I can do it as soon as possible. As soon as possible. They know that you're not going to know a lot. They know you're a student. That's okay. As soon as possible. Getting that actual like on-the-job career experience as soon as you can will get the ball rolling at the top of the mountain that will turn into a giant landslide later on. Yeah, ACMW also welcomes everyone. It's like you can just come out, support. It's topics that are relatable for not just women, but for everyone who is living in a society. So, yeah.
On the topic of applying and stuff, I think that even if you're like a freshman or sophomore, you should probably apply to like as many places as you possibly can, because there's a certain amount of like stress that goes into the interview cycle. And if you can stress yourself out earlier and you kind of understand that maybe you don't have as good a chances, you'll kind of remove that stress or like lessen it later on. So and if you get interviews, even if you do bomb them, like it's still a really good experience. Like you might feel terrible for a couple days afterwards, but it'll get better and better as you go on. And if you inevitably going to be doing a bunch of interviews in your life or in your early career, it's better to just get your ego out of the way and stop caring about it as much and just do as best as you can. You change that 0% into like some small percent, like 0% chance I'm going to ever get this job, to like, I don't know, maybe it's a very low percentage, but it's something at all,
Yeah, and there's also like the Explore program, specific programs put on by companies for freshmen and sophomores. So it's not only like, we get it, you're an undergrad, you're not career experienced, whatever, but especially like, you haven't even maybe taken any CS classes yet. That's fine. And they want you to apply. They understand the internship experience is not going to be you coming in, flexing your skills. It's going to be you coming in there to learn. And they know that.
I would encourage freshmen and sophomores to apply also, because in these programs like the Explore program, the questions will be different. So if you could get a question like attach a head to a linked list, versus if you wait till your junior and senior and you'll get like a depth first search like graph theory question.
I think it's also like, I guess when I was applying to these programs, like when I was a freshman, I didn't apply to any of like a lot of the different freshman and sophomore programs and stuff, because like I was looking at my resume and I was just like, oh, this is horrible. Like I just want to wait until I get like that one thing and then I can apply to all these places. And like the marginal benefit of me doing that was like nothing. Like that was terrible. By the time that I actually had that one thing, which was like, I don't even know when I don't even think I did get it. Like it just ended up being like, I could have been sending out applications earlier. Like I missed a bunch of deadlines for places that were accepting applications. Like nothing I could have put that was one line that I did in a weekend was realistically like gonna put me ahead of all these other candidates or anything like that. Like I would have been better off just sending what I had than trying to like wait and being like, oh, I can just add this thing and it'll be like whatever. Like it's just like as soon as you can get your resume out, especially with programs like Explore, because I know that they have like a different hiring cycle. I think like they hire faster, and because there's less spots, just like as soon as you can send it out, you just send it out. That's just kind of my motto now.
Not only apply as soon as you can, like just start now, but also just don't be nervous to apply, like Keenan and several other people have said. Like I said, the internship that I applied to that only 6 people did, about 40 people came to the interest meeting that the professor had for this internship. And everybody, when I talked to a few people afterwards, because I recognized them, they were too nervous to apply. They thought, oh, I'm not gonna, I just took CS1, I'm not gonna be able to do it. Like the guy didn't even list the tech stack. He didn't even list what tech you would be doing. He just be like, you just need to know Java. That's it. And only 6 people applied. So, and just always apply as early as you can. Rejection sucks, but it definitely gets better.
So that's definitely like really important to know. Just apply early. It's never too early to apply. And that actually leads us to our next most upvoted question. So applying as early as you can. How do you make yourself stand out when you're still fairly early in the CS curriculum?
Someone going to show for the club? join a club, do some stuff with the club. Ops stuff is nice. Or even like hosting a workshop or something. I did a little bit of like hosting a programming practice workshop last spring. And I mean, I slapped that on my resume. It's definitely worth it. It's something you can talk about. And I think I used that in my application to get into Facebook's Above and Beyond CS program, which is like an interview practice workshop. And I think that's the only reason why I got it, is because I told them that I shared knowledge with other people in my school. And so that's just like a springboard that you can use to, you know, propel yourself to other opportunities.
Yeah, like sorry, the question, what's it called? Like with early in the CS curriculum, standing out is just kind of like when I applied to Microsoft, I had a website that I wrote like within like the first, like it was literally the way I learned how to write like HTML and CSS and stuff. Like that was still on my resume when I applied, just because like it wasn't at all impressive, like for the purpose of like actually showing that I can do stuff like technically, but like I just like to like tell the story about it, you know what I mean? And that's kind of like the hardest part is getting the interview, and then once you're there you can just kind of like tell your story about like, oh, this is a stupid little web app thing that I made, but here's like the reason I made it and here's what I learned when I was doing it, you know what I mean? Like it's like I think people think that projects have to be like much bigger things than they really have to be, like, you know what I mean? You can really just like something you did over a weekend, you know, you could do that for 3 weekends and now you have 3 projects that could get you a job in something that you want to do, you know, just on something that like you're interested in, and that's automatically setting you apart from like the majority of people in your CS classes and stuff that probably wouldn't like go on the weekend and make a project.
Really extending what Dylan said, like build small projects. Hackathons are a great way to build those projects. Like I'm not just talking about night hacks, which you should definitely go to, because going to night hacks in 2019 really helped my application cycle, but just build small projects. It doesn't matter if it's a simple to-do list app that you followed a tutorial for and you just added a few more features, but hackathons are a great way to get that experience. Attending clubs like this, like you're doing right now, is a great way, like attending the workshops for clubs, because they'll walk you through how to build something. Don't be afraid to ask questions in chats and other club support groups. I actually transferred to UCF as a junior, so I was taking Intro to C my junior year because I did my gen eds at Miami-Dade College. So I was a junior, so I would be asked like junior questions, like higher level questions, even though I hadn't even taken CS1 yet in applications. So that was definitely rough. So this, I know a lot of people here might be freshmen or sophomores, but even if you're a junior, there's still a chance that you can get a lot of great internships. Definitely takes a little bit more work because we're not eligible for some of the STEP and Explore programs, but you can definitely still get them. But hackathons, it's a great, easy way to build experience and build up your resume.
To add to that, I would say be ready to tell stories about things, like going to hackathons or be ready to tell a story about a time that you worked with the team on a software project. Because it's one thing if you're doing these things, but you're going to be asked about them. So like try to phrase it into words. So just prepare yourself to be able to tell it in a story. It will go a really long way in the interview.
I wanted to add to what Anthony said about like having limited experience and being like a transfer student. I also transferred in as a junior, and I did struggle with that a little bit, like applying for places. Like my first CS class I took as a junior, like he did Intro to C, and even then I was hesitant about applying to places, so I didn't apply to as many places as I really should have. But I did apply to like I don't know, like maybe like 40 places, and one of the places that reached out to me was Amazon to do my OA, and so I kind of just grinded a little bit of leak code for a little while and just did the OAs, and I got that. And even then, I didn't have like much on my resume. Like my resume consisted of pretty much like I worked at a mortgage company doing like a small business doing IT, and when I was there, I made like a little web form for them to like send like pre-qualification applications from clients to like email across to our employees, and that's basically the only project I had on my resume, and they still let me in with that. So I was surprised, but I'm glad that I didn't, doubt myself too much.
Stories are a real big one. I just want to add what Brian said. Like that's super important to be able to tell a story with stuff on your resume. The Cracking the Coding interview book has that, like in a few beginning of the chapters, it gives you a nice template. But I think going back to behavioral, what we said earlier, all the experience, you could have like the best experience on your resume. You could be superstar coder at UCF, but if you can't illustrate that in like a nice story fashion, if you list off a bunch of technical bullet points that are really dry and uninteresting, like it doesn't matter how good of a programmer you are. For some companies it does, for like hedge funds and everything, they want like top superstar coders. But definitely like one thing I did for interview cycles that helped a lot is I would look at my resume and I would tell a story about the item that I had. Like, okay, let me look at my project. Let me say a story of how it would work. So definitely get that experience, but also tell a story about it.
Yeah, there's this stereotype of like computer people in TV shows are like these lone wolves that do stuff by themselves, but in reality, you're gonna be on teams working with other people. So other than personal projects, which you can definitely do on your own time, just being able to show like you can work with other people and communicate with others effectively, will make you stand out a lot. Because that's how actual real life is going to be like. You're not going to be sitting by yourself 24 hours a day, not talking to anyone.
So before we move on to like the next question or something I kind of want to address is that this has been mentioned a couple times. Cracking the Coding Interview. It's a book about a bunch of technical questions that you'll be asked during technical interviews. I put the link in the chat, as well as LeetCode. LeetCode is kind of an online platform where you can kind of like practice technical questions. Some of those questions are even like used in interviews sometimes. So it is definitely like a really good resource. And you also can learn about runtime analysis. That's something you'll learn in Computer Science 1, but you can start learning it now. It's not too difficult to get a grasp on. So those are just kind of some resources to kind of get going on that technical interview thing. And you can always like look up tutorials on these LeetCode questions. You can filter by the easiest ones, which is what I'm doing right now, and I'm kind of knocking them all out as I go through it. And that leads to the question, what skills do you suggest having learning as a sophomore looking for an internship opportunity over the summer?
I mean, I started in like web development and like full stack web development, and that's been like pretty much exactly what I've done in like every internship like since then. And I just kind of picked that kind of arbitrarily too, just as like something I thought was interesting and something I could pick up really quickly, and that I really ended up enjoying. And then I've also kind of like explored mobile development, and still like I'm looking at a lot of other stuff that I think is interesting and I want to check out. But I think honestly like the first thing that you learn isn't really like gonna be make or break. it's just like going from zero to something, of like actually picking something up and actually doing it, and like actually making a project doing anything is going to be more valuable. Because like for a long time I was like second guessing myself, like, oh, I don't know if I want to do web, like I want to do this and that, and I ended up like just spending a long time doing nothing. So it's just kind of like having that bias to action of just being like, I'm just going to do something, and no matter what it is, it's going to end me up in a place that's like further along, I feel like is probably the right way to approach it.
I think the analysis paralysis that Dylan mentioned, that like, oh my God, with like mobile development, web development, AI and ML, I need to learn all these things, DevOps. Yeah, it's definitely really overwhelming when you first start. Like that hindered me for a long time. Like I would do a web development tutorial, then I would drop it, then I would do something else. I wonder if I can show you the books that my computer is sitting on. I don't think I can, but I have a large amount of programming books that I never finished that I now use to prop up my monitors for my thing. I think just picking something and starting with it, if you want like an actual skill to learn, I think Docker and also like good front end design. A lot of people think front end is yucky. Like I was one of those people, and I spent all my time learning back end. And now that I actually want to build stuff that looks nice, I regret never learning front end. So I think being really good with front end frameworks is definitely a skill that a lot of people don't put big emphasis on. And Docker, I think, is really cool. So I use Docker for literally everything these days. And also, by the time you're a senior in CS, like picking up new skills is going to be relatively easy. So like just stick to something now and stick with it, and just get good at it. Like if you never need to transition to another field, you won't have trouble with it because you already have all that computer science knowledge in your brain. So.
Quick thing to add. Thanks, Brian. He answered a question from like the bottom of the Slido really quick because it's like a quick answer. To our host, if you want to cherry pick a question that you specifically want to address, go ahead. The Slido is for you guys to also look at and kind of pick out some questions. Just throwing that out there as we continue. So I also kind of want to move into like some more like personal questions for you guys specifically, because you guys definitely have some really important experiences individually. One thing that I think is really important to know is that, you know, software engineering or coding positions are not the only thing out there for us. Like there's a lot of other types of positions out there. And one of them is a product manager. And Brian, you were a product manager intern for Royal Bank of Canada. Do you want to talk about that? Or I might be wrong about the company, but.
Yeah, I did software engineering at Royal Bank of Canada. I did product management at Microsoft twice, and I did it at this company called Finexio in Maitland. It's like a startup, financial technology startup. And that job is largely figuring out how the software is going to act in order to accomplish the business goals. And it's also about like you're assigned a task and you have to work with engineers, so you're going to work with software developers, but you're the one that's responsible for delivering on the deadline, and usually you have to set your deadlines and everything. But it's like there's different terminology for it, and every company has different explanations. So like you'll hear it be called like product manager, program manager, project manager. But for tech companies, you're usually going to be the one that's like interviewing the customers, the end users a lot, and trying to figure out what do they really need to accomplish with the software. And then you have to like make a document that outlines how the software is going to act. And then you have to rally up the team and make sure that it gets built. It's like a high level of what the product manager role is. And there's internships for product manager. There's usually a lot less than software engineering internships, but they are out there. And I've been doing internships for a while now. Been in college for a really long time, and I've seen like last year I've seen product management internships. They're growing. There's more and more every year, which is good.
Thanks, Brian. Another kind of interesting opportunity that also exists are research positions. Anthony, if I'm not mistaken, you've done a research position abroad. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, thank you, Harold. I did, so in summer of 2019, I did a research internship that was funded by National Science Foundation with a professor here at UCF. He's now retired, but if anyone had Avelino Gonzalez for Intro to C, that's a class he often taught, but he retired, I believe, at the end of 2019. So research internships are also fairly uncommon. You'll definitely see them, and normally they're kind of under the guise of what's called an REU, so research undergraduate experience. I actually don't know what it fully stands for, but I'm going to type it in the chat. And I think after this workshop in the Night Hacks Discord, I'll put some links on where to find an REU. One really cool thing about REUs, and first of all, not a lot of people apply to them because not a lot of people know they exist. So a lot of labs in either here in the US or abroad, they will normally bring on, they call them interns or they call them researchers. You can use the term interchangeably because you're essentially doing the same thing. You're assigned to a project for X amount of weeks. Basically, like the work I did at Microsoft this past summer was extremely similar to the research I did in Germany last summer. And the really cool thing is normally you get a publication out of it. So you help write a paper, and having a publication on your resume is something really cool. And if you care about grad school, a PhD or thesis track masters, that's a really good opportunity too. In terms of actually finding research internships, you can ask professors here at UCF if they're funding for the lab. Sorry, my dog might bark. There's some people yelling outdoors. So if you hear some barks, that's why. But in terms of finding an REU, the professors normally post up postings or research as like looking for a paid researcher, so that they're also under the guise of researcher. And one last quick thing about REUs that just left my mind, but I'm going to circle back to it. I had a piece of advice for REUs. Oh, that's what it was. They're a lot easier interview-wise than internships. So for REUs, the people that like the one I did last summer, 0 coding questions. It was all behavioral. So like they just asked me some questions about myself. They invited me to get coffee with them. That was literally it. They just wanted to make sure they did the beer test essentially, except most of the people there were under 21. So it was the coffee test. But research internships are a very good opportunity. And I think it's something that people often neglect because they're scared of the word research, and they're scared like, uh-oh, I don't know anything about this X field, oh, science. So like they're scared of that, but it's a lot easier than people think. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Dylan, so one thing that we wanted to ask you was that, you've worked at plenty of different types of companies, both big and small. So do you want to tell us kind of differences between working for, a large company or maybe like a smaller local business, but still kind of in the tech sphere?
Yeah, totally. My experience has been, I worked at, like the smallest company I worked at was, it's like, I think it was like I reported to like the CTO, and it was like an unpaid internship I did. It was my first one. And that's kind of a controversial topic. Like, should you do an unpaid internship? I don't really know what exactly like the answer would be. For me, it was like, it just definitely depends on like your financial situation and different things like that. And like looking back on it, it's definitely like kind of a dangerous opportunity because there's like the place where you could be taken advantage of because of the fact that you don't really have that agreement with the employer that you're getting paid to do actual work and stuff. But like, yeah, that was like the smallest one I ever worked at, and that was really cool because like I feel like the mentorship you get when the company is like really small, kind of, it's like you're really you obviously have an impact just because of how small it is, like the nature of it. Like your stuff has to go into production, like you have to be actually having an impact, or else it's like a small business. Like they have a bottom line that's a lot smaller than larger businesses that can kind of write off some of the interns' work and stuff. And then at some of the larger businesses that I worked at, I definitely see like there's like you kind of see like the bureaucracy a little bit and kind of like the politics and stuff. And like at times it's good because you kind of get like you see like the actual engineering practices that like big companies use to like actually build like huge, distributed like systems and stuff. But it's also like if you want to like have an impact like really quickly and just like really quickly be able to put stuff into production and stuff, that can sometimes be harder to do at large companies from like what I've seen. just because of all the different safeguards and stuff that they have because of how many people use their product. But they both have like their advantages. Like large businesses, you obviously get the advantage of like, it's like more, you know, well known. The people that work there a lot of the time, like you have like really senior people that you can go to, and smaller businesses, sometimes you have like what this like, it's just two different like ends of the spectrum, but definitely they both have had like their advantages from my experience.
Thanks, Dylan. And I just noticed in the chat people were talking about like, you know, hackathon, team creations and all that stuff. And Camilla mentioned how NightHacks partnered with ACM to do an intro to hackathon workshop. It's on our YouTube right now. You can go check it out. It is a great resource with our guest. We had a special guest, Terrell Ibanez. He's been super involved in hackathons. Just putting that plug in there because I saw it mentioned in the chat. If you guys want to know the ins and outs of hackathons, what to take away, that's a resource online. So just throwing that out there. So next question for Camila. So you participated in the Microsoft Explorer program, and that is a program specifically geared towards like, you know, freshmen. Do you want to kind of talk about that, the differences between that and a more like, you know, senior, closer to graduation level internship, and all that?
Yeah, Harold. So it's for freshmen and sophomores. Basically, if you're within like the specific year of graduation that they're looking for, I put the link for the program up higher in chat so you can check that out. And it's basically, it's called Explore because you're exploring the different aspects of development. So there's the actual like software engineering portion where you're programming, as well as testing and acting as a PM. Compared to the regular internship, with the regular internship, you're more integrated with the company's team and go to like their stand-up meetings and work on whatever product they're working on with them. The Explore program, you're a little bit more separated and you get a lot of, at least in my case, flexibility, since they want you to have the ability to like lead your intern pod, which is the group of interns that you're working with, as a PM. So for example, with my team, we worked together as PM for the first couple of weeks as we were first trying to figure out what to do, and then switched off being PM each week, as well as incorporating like a lot of testing near the end of the internship. When I first came into it, I thought it was going to be a lot more discreet with like, oh, 1 month, you're all going to be a PM intern for this team. And another month, you're going to be a software engineer. No, you're going to work on a long-term project over the entirety of the summer and take turns acting as PM and developer and so on, so that you pretty much have like complete say in what goes on to the project. It helps a lot with learning how to manage up, down, and also sideways, kind of, with managing up with your actual manager and your mentorship and all that, managing down with the people, with like the software engineers on your team while you're PM, as well as, since my team was switching off PMs, managing sideways with other PMs so that you can all learn from each other. Brian, are you asking me that? Or are you asking yourself that?
He's asking, it's a question from the Slido. I think he's answering.
I tried to like do a bottom space, but then I pressed Shift Enter and it just sent the question. So
oh yeah. Oh.
Answer's coming. Answer's coming.
All right.
Or you just speak about it now. Speak about it on camera right now.
Oh, okay. Wow, this is nice. Day to day for a PM. So the reason why I like the PM role is because every day is different. So some days you could be like interviewing users and seeing like what they really need out of software in order to like accomplish their goal. Some days you could be like getting software developers unblocked. Maybe they need some information from somebody else on the team. Some days you could be like meeting with like higher level management and like connecting different parts of the company together. And then some days like you can be doing like UI UX, like that's a great skill to have as a PM. Like prototyping out how the software looks beyond beyond just writing it out in a document how it should behave. So the PM role is like a really social role, and you're always going to be doing something different. You wear lots of different hats. So if that sounds like something that you would enjoy, then I think PM is a great balance between technology and then also like business and design.
I'm not adding anything to what Brian said. I just wanted to add something about research internships that I forgot to mention. One really valuable thing about research internships is that if you're a person that likes multiple fields, so if you like biology, if you like physics, if you like materials research, I'm just looking off the National Science Foundation site right now. As a programmer, you're extremely valuable to those labs. Because they often need people who are good at programming, and like nobody applies to those because people are like, I want to work for a big company. But a lot of the times these small labs offer a lot of great experience and will basically get you on the spot. There's a place called Florida Space Institute that about 2 years ago, actually about a year ago, they hired 2 interns on. Both of my friends got on, and they were physicists looking for some programmers. And my friend basically started there and hasn't left. And he's like the only software engineer for the team. So he went from an intern to just transitioning to a part-time software engineer and making more money than he was being paid as an intern because they liked him so much. I do appreciate Brian's camera right now as he tries to adjust, but his face is swamped by the
Sorry
flag.
about this.
So if you have if you have always liked evolutionary biology, go on the UCF website, look up the evolutionary biology and see if the lab has any REUs open. And you could do an RU at another school. Let's say you applied to MIT but got rejected. So you're like, guess I'm going to UCF. Kind of crazy if that was your second choice, but if you've ever wanted to go to MIT, MIT has RUs open, and a lot of MIT students don't apply to them because they want to go to other schools during their summer. So your competition is just other people in the United States, which is a much smaller pool than you think of. So definitely research internships are just as valuable. Yeah, I know it's kind of counterintuitive, but I had friends who got accepted, friends from UCF who got accepted to MIT's REU. They got canceled because of COVID, which really sucks, but it's honestly not that hard. A lot of people like to think it's going to be super hard leak codes, but they just asked her a bunch of behavioral questions. That's it. So yeah, definitely go for research internships. They're a great, easy way to cross disciplines and cross domains. And I'm a huge advocate for them because I do like research and I think it's really cool. So yeah, I'm going to post a link for NSF RUs in the chat right now, and I'll post them in the Discord afterwards too.
I was about to ask because I was gonna be like trying to apply for that. That's actually very interesting.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate that. Another one last personal question, because we do have to get to some of the Slido questions. To Keenan, can you tell us? So you worked for Amazon as an intern, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Amazon, this super huge company." And then there's also a lot of people who think that, like, I've heard that it's a really high pressure place to work. So do you want to talk about your experience at Amazon as well as kind of like, is it as high pressure as a lot of people make it out to be? Just your general experience participating in their internship.
Yeah, sure. So that is a common thing that I hear from people, and I thought that it was going to be like really stressful and like working long hours before I went there. But honestly, the reality is the common answer to a lot of questions is it depends. It really depends on what team you're in, what organization you're in. I've heard of people who do work long hours and are really stressed out and stuff like that. But it's kind of like if you get paid a decent amount. Not to say that that's warrants the long hours, but it is kind of like a roll of the dice whether you're going to be like able to be working 40 hours a week or 60. And but as an intern, like on my team specifically, that's what I can speak to. I haven't had too many detailed stories for other people on other teams that had like bad experiences, but my experience was really good, like overwhelmingly good. I would say that, I don't know, in my mind, I think I got really lucky that my team was so nice. Everyone on my team was like super open to answering any questions that I had. They were super responsive. Like within minutes of me asking questions, they would respond to me. Nobody was like extremely busy or anything. My manager always told me like, hey, do not work overtime. Like we don't want you to work overtime. Like we don't want you to ruin your experience by like burning yourself out so fast. So I rarely work more than 40 hours a week, probably like 36 to 45 or something around there. And I didn't feel pressured at all. And I think just generally, everyone on my team did a good job, even during like the pandemic of like I had to work remotely, of course. They're in Seattle, and so I had a time difference of about 3 hours, and so I would work 12 at noon to 8 p.m. at night. But they still like made a really good effort to like have daily hangouts at like after work, like 4 to 5 p.m. their time is they just set off the hour to like not talk about work. So really you got a free hour out of your day to just, hang out. And then and in the mornings every day we had stand up. So we always, everybody also like had their webcams on. So we had face-to-face interaction. Everyone was super nice. And so overall my experience was like really good. It could be different. Like if Amazon places you in a team based on like they say their business needs. And so it's really just literally like a roll of the dice. Like maybe they'll look at your qualifications, maybe they won't. You really don't know. But so there is a chance that you get a bad team. There's a chance that you get a good team. But I don't think that just because there's a chance you get a bad team is a reason to like stay away from it completely, because plenty of people have lots of opportunities. And even if you work there full time, like I think after you work like a year in a team or something, they encourage you to like swap teams and stuff. Even my manager told me that I got a return offer and they encouraged me to select a different team, because by default you go back to your same team. They encourage you to select a different team so you get a more varied experiences. Hopefully they weren't like just throwing shade on me by that comment, and they don't want me to be on the team again. I think they do, but I think they're just giving me helpful suggestions. So that's what I may go with.
I can speak on that too. I think it's really a roll of the dice. And it's also really, really important on like your manager's personality and how they work. I've done 2 internships at Microsoft, and the first one, the team had a really great work-life balance, and my manager was like really friendly and had good habits. And then my second internship, there wasn't as much of a work-life balance, and my manager, like I could see like how his overworking was like affecting his life. And I wasn't really like down to do that, like because like even if he doesn't mean to like impose his lifestyle on me, still like it's all he knows, like that's just the way he works. He just works himself to death. So I just didn't really like mesh with that team. But it was the same company, 2 different teams and 2 completely different situations. So it's really a roll of the dice. And also talking about rolling of the dice, I think the interviews are also a roll of the dice. The interviewer that you get could be really cool and make your interview like pretty like easy, or your interviewer can be like really mean and like they don't want you to get the job and they make your interview really hard at the same company. It's and that's why it's important to like just apply early and often, and then you're bound to get a good spot.
Yeah, kind of going off what Brian said, when it comes to like interviews being like a roll of the dice, like at like a lot of places that I've kind of like gone through the process with and stuff, I have like noticed like just like your interview, like it can make you feel terrible, obviously, like doing terrible in an interview. Like I feel terrible every time that like something like that happens, but like I had one interview, it was like my first time I ever had to write code on a board, and I came in and it was like 3 like senior like this like 3 PhD guys that have a PhD in computer science, and they're working on like this mobile application. I'm not gonna say which mobile application, but like it's like it was like a company, very small company, and like they were like 3 guys and they were interviewing me, and I sit down and they were like, okay, well, we're gonna have you like do a coding question, go up on the board and like show us how to figure out what kind of triangle a triangle is if I give you the 3 sides. So like my board work like looked terrible and everything, and they're like, okay, looks good, code it up for me. And I go to do it, and they're like, oh wait, you only know Python? We want you to do it in Java. And I was like, but I don't know Java. And they were like, well, I think that you can just figure it out when you go. And I was like, oh, well, okay. And I mean, like, I was going through this, and one guy was like, oh, by the way, you're going to need some semicolons. So I just started like putting random semicolons everywhere and stuff. And like, I left that interview, and like, this is like probably 3 months after I switched from economics to computer science. And I was like about to drop the major because I was like, oh, this is not for me. Like, this is how these interviews are. Like, they make you code in languages you don't know. And like, they make you like do all this is horrible. That was the worst experience of like my life. And then, you know, like I ended up doing another interview, and it was nothing like that. So luckily, you know, I'm still here. But it's really like roll of the dice, like to the max. Like, you could have an experience and don't like internalize it, because it's could just be, you know, nothing that has to do with you, and everything has to do with like, why would someone make you do that in an interview?
Yeah, specifically about that, like I had a pretty bad experience with my interviewer for Microsoft, which I know it's like also a roll of the dice. Like, you might just have, you know, poor interviewers, but I mean, this guy was like a team lead, and he was an engineer, but he throughout the whole interview he was like super distant. Like, he wouldn't really answer my questions that I had, and I got like really nervous trying to do the question. I was like trying to rotate a matrix, and I did not know how to do that. I was just taking like Intro to C, and I'm not good at math, and I had to like reduce the problem like 2 times, and I bombed the question, and he was kind of just like looking at me, like writing, like sitting writing, or he looked at me and he like wrote down on a piece of paper like what I was doing. I didn't like couldn't read it, but I just felt like he was slightly judging me. And then afterwards, I asked him if he had any like advice for me or like feedback, and he just looked at me and he told me, he said, "Do you have any other questions?" And I was like, okay, I guess not. No, just, you know, get out of here now. So yeah, I've had poor experiences like that too. I mean, maybe if I would have known how to do the question, it might have been a little bit better. Like, I could have worked with them more. But yeah, I think it's definitely a roll of the dice. I don't pin that on Microsoft or anything. I don't. It's like a bad experience I had with Microsoft, but I think it was more like the interviewer than like Microsoft as a company. So that's definitely a possibility. It is RNG.
Right, thank you guys. So let's move to a Slido question, because I know we haven't really been looking at that. And I know a lot of you guys have been answering the questions in the Zoom chat. Thank you guys so much, because we're probably not gonna be able to get through every single question on the Slido. But one thing that is one good question that I see here at the top. So everyone's applying to a bunch of different internships, you know, up to hundreds of different internships, and maybe they get a couple offers. So suppose you are lucky enough to have multiple offers at the same time. What are the most important things to consider, to compare between your offers?
I want to answer this because I have a story very close to my heart, and the story does not end well. I moved to UCF from Miami to go to NASA. I wanted to work at NASA. I want to end this story that I have a return offer from Microsoft, and that's what I'm accepting. So you know where the story is going to go. This fall, I had 2 internships offers. I had a return offer from a local company, LSQ, that I interned with back in spring. I really liked working with them, and they wanted me to come back for fall. And I had an internship offer with NASA. I didn't even interview with NASA. I had a really niche technology on my resume, and they're like, nobody who applied has had this technology. We need you, is basically what the team said. And it was NASA or the other company. Obviously, I didn't choose NASA. Keenan, you joke, but it was actually Fortran. Nobody wanted, like, but the only thing with the NASA offer is that they wanted me to be full-time, and I really wanted to graduate this fall. And so that's like the reason why I rejected NASA is not super exciting, but because I knew I couldn't commit to being a full-time student and being also a full-time intern. But in terms of like, what do you do when you have multiple offers? What I did is, like, as I was weighing these 2 offers in my hand, the pay was exactly the same, but just one had more hours over the other. And some of the things you should need to consider is pay, location, if this wasn't COVID, like where would you be going? Is that somewhere you want to go? Opportunities. So if I hadn't taken Microsoft, I would have taken NASA because that's a really big name on my resume. And like I already accepted an offer with Microsoft. I knew I'm not going to need this NASA name on my resume. Like I already have a job after graduation. But if I had not done Microsoft yet, I might have been like, ooh, I might want to push this aside, like the distracted boyfriend meme. I might have done that. Also, by principle, I already accepted the other offer with the local company, and I felt like I was betraying their trust if I rejected them and say, hey guys, I know you were expecting me, bye. People often talk about reneging, and like that's a different discussion, like, oh, you should renege, companies don't care about you. But oftentimes if you renege, the recruiters are the ones hurt by that. So so just keep that in mind, but that's a separate conversation. But one of the most important things about comparing the offers was I talked to my friends about it. I think we can get very emotional and very like stuck on what an offer is good. And if you have a support network or if you have friends, especially like the Night Hacks Discord, I talk to the other people on like some of my Discord servers I'm in, like, hey guys, what do I do? Like I'm at this crossroads. And I like, if you have a partner, if you have roommates, talk to them. I talked to my roommates and my partner too about like, what do I do? It was a big conundrum, but unfortunately I will report I am leaving UCF having never interned at NASA, but I get to say I got an offer from them. So I guess that counts. But yeah, don't learn Fortran. It wasn't worth it. I just did Fortran as a joke and I hated it, but don't do that. Don't do what I did.
I would add on that. You know, I never actually learned how to pronounce that word. Is it reneging? How do you say it?
You said it right.
Reneging. Okay. Often if you do get multiple offers, the company will try to like will try to like give you like a deadline so that you have to like make a decision. And I would encourage you to not let the company like force you to make a decision. You'll hear like lots of different opinions on like, is it okay to accept an internship and then go somewhere else? And at the end of the day, I feel like you have to put yourself first and you have to like figure out all the opportunities that are on the table. And if a company isn't willing to respect that and they only are going to give you 2 weeks to accept, then I would accept and then still interview. And if worst case, like, yeah, you might hurt the recruiter's feelings, but you had to put yourself first, and you had, because like this is your career, this is the beginning of your career. You want to make the right decision. You want to see all the opportunities. You want to see all the doors that are open for you. So don't let a company bully you into like having and just to picking and then quitting on all the other opportunities that potentially were there for you.
Just quickly adding on to what Brian said, I know some students at UCF are trying to force the college to get like a mandatory extension for offer policy. A lot of other schools do this. Microsoft is guilty of like bullying you to accept a return offer in 2 weeks. And it's very hard to get that extended. I think a lot of us can say that we had 2 weeks to accept a return offer after you leave Microsoft. So definitely what Brian said, put yourself first. Like, you know, try to avoid reneging if you can, but if the company won't extend your offer, like, then put yourself first. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy that Microsoft gives you 2 weeks. I have until November 1st for Amazon for my return offer. So I'm like pretty lucky for that, I feel like. But and as an anecdote for the like reneging situation, I actually got 2 offers last fall for summer. The first one I got was from JP Morgan Chase, and I went to a hackathon and interview with them, and then I got an offer from them. But their deadline night was 2 weeks after they had like given to me, and so at that point, like I kind of wasn't in the pipeline of any other companies, and I had previously like applied to Amazon, and they like gave me their OA, but I was too scared of doing it, so I just passed the deadline on it, so I couldn't do it anymore. So I just accepted JP Morgan Chase because they paid pretty well, and it was the best I was probably gonna get. And then, but then like in November of that last year, Amazon like sent me another email saying like, hey, we actually are extending the OA time that you can do it. So here's the link again. And so I'm like, okay, well, I've already accepted an offer, so I'll just, do it for fun, see what I can get to, just for experience for next year maybe. And so I did them, and I kept getting OA1, OA2, OA3, and then I got the virtual interview. And so I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I don't think I'll really do well on it, but I'll do it just for the experience. And so I did it, and I ended up doing pretty well on it, and they gave me an offer. And so it just made sense in like almost every way for me to accept Amazon over JP Morgan Chase. I was kind of concerned about reneging, but I knew that I didn't really care that much, honestly. I don't really have that moral aspect of not wanting to do it. I can see how it would kind of suck for the recruiters though, for sure. But I actually like emailed my JP Morgan Chase recruiter and told him like about my situation, and like a really long email of like me trying to seem as nice as possible about it. And he's like, hey, can we schedule a call? And I'm like, uh-oh. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do like next Thursday or something. And so he calls me the Thursday after, and he just like asked me like, he's like super nice about it. And he's like, hey, like, I'm just wondering, what company are you going to? Because I didn't tell him explicitly. And I was like, I'm going to Amazon. And I wanted to be transparent with him because I knew it was kind of sucked for the company. And I told him like, hey, I can like share you the compensation information or whatever, if that helps you, like if that is any consolation, I guess. So I gave him some information just as like a token of my appreciation from my side. But yeah, overall, he did end up saying like, I was worried that they were going to like blacklist me or like get me in trouble with the school. But he said like, no, don't worry about that at all. And even went as far as to say like, if you want to work at JP Morgan Chase in the future, like feel free to reach out to me and we'd be glad to have you again. So I was really happy that was the outcome of that situation for me, because it was pretty stressful.
Anthony brought up a good point in chat. Recruiters are people too. You don't want to talk to them as if it's a transaction. Talk to them as if it's a conversation, because like they want to know about you. You want to know about them. Don't be so like nervous and think that there's just like this person that's like so much above you. Like no, have a conversation with them. It shouldn't be that nerve wracking. It can take some practice to get there. Do any of our other hosts want to kind of talk about comparing offers maybe between bigger and smaller companies, or just when you have a lot of offers in general?
Yeah, my main thing would be figuring out what your priorities are, because, for example, like smaller and bigger companies can have different pros and cons. Like bigger companies will have opportunities for like mentorship and growth, and will have like a lot of more resources and money for that sort of thing. But with smaller companies, it's more likely that you can have like more impact on a bigger project, for example, and even more mentorship, as Dylan was talking about, because it's a small enough company where like everyone knows each other. You can talk to anyone very easily. Whereas with bigger companies, it's like, okay, I know like my team and my manager, and I know by name some other people, but the company itself is huge. So figuring out your priorities in what you want, whether it's like, I want to live in this specific area, I want this pay scale, I want this specific work-life balance, or I want opportunities for growth and mentorship. I would consider those first, as well as what the companies themselves focus on, like the products, so that like if you're not interested in it, it's going to be more difficult to come in every day and be like, yay, something that I don't really care about. Sorry. So I'd lay that all out on the table first, and then when offers come in, consider your priorities. Because it's okay to choose like one thing over another, even if it's not as popular with like other students.
Yeah, definitely don't let what like Reddit /CS career questions dictate your decision. There's so much to consider, and it's not an easy choice. So don't feel like you have to come to an easy conclusion. And you're definitely you might even regret the choice afterwards. Like sometimes I regret rejecting NASA, but I would have been working with Fortran code, a dead language essentially. So like tech stack, location, price, pay, everything Camila mentioned. So it's a difficult choice, and don't feel bad if you regret it. So because you might. So.
Yeah, I think just like to add on to like what both you guys are saying, like just chasing like the prestige of a company, in my opinion, isn't really like an effective way of like weighing offers and stuff. You know what I mean? Like just thinking like, oh, I'm gonna like this company name might eventually lead to like unless you actually want to work there and that's actually something, but like just leveraging that to get something else and stuff. Like I don't really like, I think you learn the same amount when it comes to like going to like a small company, going to a medium-sized company and those kind of things. And like if you're like, you're going to learn the most like where you're actually like you care about what you're working on. So like, you know, you see, like I think a lot of like the time when people just go after like a prestigious like name that they really want, and like that's kind of like the end all like goal, like you don't you miss the purpose of like, oh, I'm actually trying to learn stuff, actually trying to like build my skills and stuff. Because like sometimes you might even like you'll have like that name and stuff, but like what you write underneath it on a resume, what like you're actually doing there and stuff, like that's eventually what you'll want to be doing full time, 40 hours a week, that kind of stuff. Like so like I don't think that like if you just have like one offer and you think, oh, this name is going to be better than this name, that's not like, you know, like everything that they're talking about like taking into consideration, I think is a lot that you should also consider when it comes to like internships and stuff. Like everyone talks about like the big four and stuff, but in reality there's so much more to the whole process.
Yeah, I want to say, like, just to reiterate, I think that the most important thing you can do in life in general is to have some long-term goals and priorities and things that you want to attain, and then build off of that to make your decisions in the present. So if you have like certain goals, like you want to be an excellent software engineer at some point in your life, then if you can use that as a starting point to really understand what it takes to get there, and how attainable some goals are, like you might come to the conclusion that you would want to spend a lot of your time grinding elite code so you can get to like a company that is like really big, or has good best practices or whatever, and that might be like the right route for you. But even after, if you get to a big company like that and you experience like what it is, sometimes your priorities might change. Like I can see now how I might benefit from going to like a smaller company or like a startup and having, you know, more hands-on with my work and more like bare bones, like using tools that other people are using that aren't just big huge tools made at a company that are all private and, you know, confidential and everything. Because at Amazon there's a bunch of tools that are just all internal for use, and you have to use them in very specific ways, and there's only internal wiki pages that you can access to understand things. But if you're working at like a startup or you're making your own company or your own application, like there's parts of your application that are missing because you use these big monolithic tools to spread the gap between them. So if you're working at a startup, you'd probably be able to use like a lot of the more common like open source tools. And I think that's something that I was missing from Amazon. So that's why I hope that in the future, like even though I was looking for like this big name company or whatever, I can see how it might be more beneficial for me now to, you know, move to something smaller or just get that experience at the very least.
Okay, thank you guys again. Also, we're gonna go back to Slido questions. Thank you guys again for answering a lot of those questions in chat. So next question is gonna be, how do you manage an internship and school at the same time? Because a lot of people might want to do an internship while they're also taking classes.
That's crazy.
It's not easy. I'll put it that way. when I was in community college, I actually worked a full-time job at like a local seafood market and also did school. That was a bad idea. That really hurt my GPA, and that basically excluded me from some companies. And in retrospect, I like, I'm scared of loans, and I know a lot of people are, but like it's okay. Like, um, just going back to that advice, don't be afraid of loans, especially if you're a software engineer or a PM. There is like a healthy limit, but I'm actually answering the question. It's not easy. Know your limits. Like, don't take too many classes. Be honest with your internship. Tell, like, there might be some weeks where you can't work a lot. Like this week, I took the yesterday off because I said, hey, I have a lot of exams this week. Is it okay if I take the day off? I need to study. And they totally respected that. So it's okay to take breaks. Be honest with your internship. Don't overload on hard classes. Ask your friends which is a good class thing to take at the same time. Like, don't do Calc 2, CS2, Discrete 1 all at the same time. Like, take it easy, even if you think you're a super genius, which is great that you have that confidence in this degree. Keep that confidence. And the last piece of advice I can offer that is, when you're at work, don't be distracted by your phone, which is a really weird advice to give, but like, it's especially true these days. Like, since we're working from home, we're not in an office where other eyes can be on us. I like, working from home has set me back a lot during my projects, especially with Microsoft at the beginning. And I'm like, what is my problem? I kept looking at my phone. I have it here right with me. So that's a weird suggestion. Like, of course you stay focused, but really, like, I can't tell you how important your time is, and your attention is the key difference between what makes a good internship and a good school at the same time. Not a living nightmare. So.
Yeah, what's it called? I'm doing the same thing. I'm working a full-time job right now at Constant Contact as a software engineer intern, and then I'm also doing 5 classes. So between those two, like, it's been like, I feel like I'm less stressed now than I was when I was taking 4 classes and doing a part-time one. And I think part of that is that it's remote, but I think it's also like, now I'm a lot more transparent with the company. Like Anthony was saying, like, if I have, like, before I would like try to always be pleasing the company and being like, oh, I'll be there at this time that I couldn't be there because I have something else I have to do, and trying to work with professors and stuff for things that just weren't worth me being extremely stressed out about. When in reality, like, I could have just gone to the company and been like, hey, I have something I have to do. And like, there's not like they're going to fire you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they've already hired you, like, you're already there, like, they're going to be really understanding. So I feel like it's made a much easier process for me, just being really transparent with them, making up like working hours when I have something I have to do at that time. Like, even if it's interviewing for like a different company, like, just coming to them directly and being like, hey, I have an interview at this time, I can't be here. And they'll like understand that too. Like, they're really, I think it's like, I don't know, I always overestimate like how upset they're going to be by me telling them stuff, but like, it's just, as long as you tell them, it's so much easier and makes your life so much easier to not have to stress about it.
If a company doesn't respect your time as a student, run away. Like, they are like, the company needs to respect you too. So make sure, understand that that's like a mutual transaction.
Oh, sorry.
I have just something short to say. Even as when I was working full time at Amazon, I was doing the Facebook Above Beyond CS workshop series, and it's just like once a week, and you have like a couple HackerRank questions to do every week. And even with that, I was kind of like stressing myself out, like having to do that much. So I can't imagine what it would be like to take multiple classes at the same time.
I'm definitely, or at least I was, the type of person that felt like very not confident because of my zero experience before. So over and over again, I would overfill my plate with things that I had to do because I felt very overwhelmed that, like, there's so many things I have to learn still, so many classes I have to take, like, as soon as possible so that I can look good. And that did not help. In fact, it actually made things more difficult for me. So getting that balance in your life is extremely important. And the imposter syndrome, it's very normal to have, like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. Like companies aren't gonna want me. They want you. They want interns to come. That's why they come to UCF. That's why they have applications open. And to chill out and just like, even if you have nothing, yes, tutorials, like I see in the chat, tiny little things, anything that you do outside of just class, even the class project, will help. You don't have to do all of the things all at the same time and have a 10-page resume. It's okay.
One question I want to ask, just kind of openly to everyone. So one thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have interviews, you're going to have offers, but in some cases you won't get the offer, you will actually be rejected. And that happens to everyone. How do you guys handle rejection? Because ultimately you will be rejected from some roles. You can't get everything.
Destroy your ego by getting rejected a bunch of times.
I think crying is healthy. It's okay to cry. If you're having a bad day, just let some tears out in the shower. I'm being serious about that. Not saying that rejection is going to make you cry, but I'm saying is applying for these jobs. This is a stressful process. I know that it's something that it's easier to just not do and ignore. But yeah, there will be rejection unless you're really lucky and you don't get rejection. But just know that my screen's like pulsing. It's pretty cool. Just know that it will be worth it. And the rejection, I see the rejection as arguably like more important than the success sometimes, especially getting those first couple of rejections. So have a positive outlook on it, have that growth mindset, and know that the next rejection is gonna hurt a lot less. The first one's always the worst.
Yeah, it's always iterating on yourself. I think just like when you're working on your software, you got to iterate on yourself, make yourself better. Like if you take that stance on pretty much everything in your life, you're constantly getting better by, failing is a good way to just understand like where you're at. Like take a sanity test of like what are you doing right, what are you doing wrong, why do you think you got rejected? Is there things that you can do to improve yourself next time? And don't stress on it too much. Like most of the time you'll have more opportunities to even go interview for the same company later, whether it be for internship or full-time later on. It's just a matter of, doing better the next time. Yeah.
Other than like acknowledging like your own feelings about it and that being perfectly okay, and then taking it as a learning experience, do keep in mind, like everyone mentioned before, sometimes flukes happen. Like these interviews are not a reflection of you as a person in any way. Sometimes spots can just get filled and they gotta send out mass rejection emails. And getting comfortable with it being like, okay, that's fine. That really sucks. That really, really sucks. But that's fine, and we're moving on to the next thing. Just at least trying is the best thing that you can do for yourself. Yeah.
And I also think it's important to note that like I bet everybody on this panel can probably has a story of a time that they just got absolutely slaughtered on an interview, and I've gotten slaughtered on plenty. And that will happen. Just know that's normal. Like sometimes the first question is just gonna catch you off guard, and you're like, what the heck? And then it's just it doesn't get any easier, and then after the interview, you're just like the call ends, and you're just like staring at the wall, like do I need to change my identity and leave this country? Like, just know that that's part of the process, and that's not only happening to you. That's happening to everybody.
I think it was fun to, when I failed that question of my Microsoft interview, the technical question, I thought it was fun to get kind of like retribution on the question itself. Looked it up on LeetCode and like just spent a little bit of time trying to solve it myself, and then eventually like still failing miserably and going to look up the solution and just like writing it out myself like 4 or 5 times and being like, okay, if I ever get this in an interview again, I'm not going to mess it up. Not a chance.
Another thing, like, don't, if you see all your friends getting amazing offers and you have like none of them, like if you guys might be looking at us, like, look at all these kids with Microsoft internships. I think like just know that should show you how common they are. And even then, like if you were to get rejected by Microsoft, you might end up in another really great place like Amazon, like Keenan did. And even if you were rejected from every big company, it doesn't mean that you can't have a really successful and fulfilling career at smaller companies. Big companies, like this, the process is super inaccurate. Sometimes it's super probabilistic. Like you need to get lucky at every stage in the interview, essentially. And that's something you can't really control. The most you can do is to do as good as you can at behavioral and do as good as you can at leak code. Or if you're a PM, whatever you need to do for those PM interviews. Sorry that I don't know. But yeah, like rejection sucks. Like it's okay to feel sad about it. And it's okay to feel sad about your other friends if they're getting offers, but don't try to let that internship search define you, because it will really cause a lot of mental harm. And I've seen a lot of friends like feel discouraged. Like I know they're super competent engineers, but they just feel like they're not worth anything because they couldn't get past the interview stage from an arbitrary interview process. So.
Yeah, I think like to build on that, because I remember I was reading the cracking the coding interview, studying for when I was doing interviews, and like I think that's where I read this, and like the first part was at large companies and at like companies in general, they care a lot less about the false negatives than they do about the false positives. So like they would much rather have a really qualified candidate not get the job than a really unqualified candidate get the job. So a lot of the time they'll have a really qualified candidate, and at the end of the day, like that's how they kind of reconcile like this idea that, oh, it's just a random question that you could get wrong and you could be having a bad day. They kind of reconcile that by like they're willing to take the risk that they're missing out on someone really good in order to avoid maybe letting somebody in that shouldn't have, which even then like that still doesn't really make as much sense, because someone, you know, could get really, you know, lucky. Like it could work both ways. They could know the question and stuff, but like just know like even they like have this perception, like not doing well in an interview, like they'll absolutely give you another one because they know that you could be like a false positive in that sense, where like, or a false negative, because of the fact that like you are a good candidate but you just didn't do well in the interview, and that's okay with them because they just don't want to let people in that would potentially get past it if they lowered the bar or something like that. So that's just probably really confusing, but basically they're just like, they're okay if you're a really good candidate and they don't hire you. They're not okay if you're a really bad candidate and they hire you. So that's the reason that a lot of really good candidates don't get past the interview stage. And that's kind of how, what I tell myself. And then I cry in the shower, like Brian was saying.
I just wanted to make a note about I think something Brian might have been saying. It's, and Anthony probably, it's really easy to look at like people on a panel like this and see like, oh my gosh, they're like so smart, they got these internships at these companies or whatever. But like last year, I think I was attending this same workshop with like other people as panelists, and they were talking about their experience, and I was feeling the exact same way. Like, oh my gosh, these people, how did they get these internships? They're like so smart. They're unbelievable. I could never do this. It's really just like a label of like, oh, you're an intern at a big company or something. Or like you had an internship at a big company. But the difference between like not having one and having one is like such a small process or such a circumstantial thing that it's just a matter of, if you put in the effort and the time into just like applying to places and failing a lot and like keep your head up and keep trying, like you'll get an internship. It's not a matter of like if, but like when, you know. So don't feel discouraged. Like I was in your shoes like literally last year.
before we move on to the next question, I kind of just want to like add my own little comment to that. Another thing too is that being rejected doesn't mean that you weren't good enough. It could also just mean that you weren't a good fit for the company. That doesn't mean that's a issue on your technical ability. Some companies just value certain things, and it also works both ways. You get a bunch of offers from companies, or you can, and you can reject them. It is okay. Like, it is normal to reject offers from companies if you don't think that you're going to learn as much as you'd like, or your values don't align with the company's. And that's another important thing to remember during interviews. They ask you, do you have any questions for us? And you should definitely have questions for them. Ask the recruiters, ask the interviewers questions. It's not just a one-sided interview. You want to know if that's a good company for you. Just because it's a big brand name behind it does not mean that you should take it no matter what. There's so much more to it. It's not a one-sided conversation. It should never be like that. So moving forward to the next question. So let's kind of talk about like the internships themselves, and we're kind of like coming up to the end of the workshop, but tell us about what you actually do in these internships. Do you just like program, like assign programming questions like you do in school? Obviously you don't. So what do you actually do?
I can go first. So typical, like, let me see if I can verbalize a general overview of like what it's like. At Amazon, I was there for 12 weeks, and in the first week, they tried to get me started really quickly. Like in the first week, I was already, talking to stakeholders about like requirements gathering for the project that I was going to be doing, even when I had like almost no context about like what the team was and what my sister teams are. And it's really hard because, coronavirus, I can't like go over and shake somebody's hand and like ask them what they do. And, but like they kind of just throw you in, at least for me, they threw me in and into a meeting of like 25 people and we're like, here, ask some questions, and like, here's your mentor, he'll help you ask some questions. And it was pretty daunting, but after a while that feeling goes away, and you kind of refine the discussions you have with stakeholders into like a list of user stories, which are like, I'm a user, I want this feature, and maybe a priority or whatever, like how big of a deal is it? And then you might reserve some things for stretch goals. Like if you finish all of the main basic goals of your project, here's what you can do in the meantime until your internship ends. And so off of those user stories, I created a design document. There's like a 6-page document on like the high level overview of my project. And then I also, along with that, created a task timeline of like, here's what I'm going to do every week, the tasks I'm going to do inside the 12 weeks that I'll be working here. And so those range from like programming stuff to having meetings with stakeholders, having meetings with like my mentor and stuff like that. And just programming, learning the technology, talking to people. Communication was a really big aspect. But yeah, so I mainly worked with like Java for the back end and the API, and then TypeScript, React on the front end, and then some database schema stuff with like DynamoDB. But it's just working with that stuff to accomplish the goals and implement the features in my project. That was the main gist of it. And talking with my mentor and my manager were really big parts of the internship that can't be understated, overstated, whatever the term is. Can't be overstated. I think that's what I was looking for. Okay, I volunteer Brian to go next.
Thank you.
So what I do at my internship as a PM, so like I mean, I do lots of different things. So for example, at the beginning of this internship, I was doing like product design stuff. So like I had this software I was like building out, like how a web app would look. Like I was working with the design team to like put it together. And that was largely because the design team had like a lot of work to do. And so like while I was like in my internship, they wouldn't have been able to get to like my project. So I was just like, I can like do the design. So I was doing design. And then also a big part of it is like you have like a Word document. So like you're given like a template, and the template it's like a spec, and you have to explain like you're building a new feature on this big software piece. So like you have to like outline like like all the functions of it, and then like you have to like explain what it's going to do. Like there's a whole document, and you're going to do like a review with the whole team of the engineers and other PMs, and they're going to like give their feedback, and you're going to figure out like how it will be implemented. You're doing a lot of like the background work, like everything but like the actual like coding and implementation. And then it's every PM's role is different. You'll be doing like presentations. I've even at my first Microsoft internship, I was even doing coding, but you don't usually code as a PM. But yeah, you're just kind of like you have to be able to like think in like the design, think in like leadership, being social, and then also like have like a technical understanding. So like you're not like telling engineers to like build something crazy in like 2 weeks. You have to have like the awareness of understanding what's reasonable. Otherwise your engineers aren't going to take you seriously, and then that's no fun. Your job's going to be really hard. But you're kind of like a jack of all trades as a PM, and in your overall like responsibility is making sure things get done.
Yeah, my experience was pretty similar to Keenan's, just because I was more software and I wasn't PM. But yeah, it was pretty much the exact same thing. Make a design doc, and then spend the rest of the time building the thing. But yeah, like most of the time too, it's the technologies that you'll use aren't stuff that you're actually like good at, or not like good at, but that you actually used before. Like I used C# all last summer. I'd never used C# like ever before. I used a lot of Azure Active Directory and like Azure stuff, which was yeah, I used that too. And like they expected you to learn it. Like they expect you to just pick that kind of stuff up and just run with it. They give you all kinds of opportunities to learn it. Like today at my job, I wrote my first like protractor test, and I broke a pipeline for like 4 hours. No one could push their stuff. It was really, really bad. But that's kind of like it's expected, because like you're an intern, like you're supposed to break stuff, you know. Not really, you're not supposed to break stuff, but like if you do, it's different than like when you're a full-time employee and like you're supposed to be knowing all this. Like they expect you to be learning, and like they're giving you technology you don't know, so like they do understand that you might make a mistake here and there because like you're learning by doing. But I don't know, it's like for me that's always been like the best way for me to learn is like just doing some stuff and actually trying to build something with it. So that's why I think it's like cool that that's like the approach you usually get at an internship.
So my internship with Microsoft was machine learning. So I think I can speak with that. Quickly answer the question from Robert, what drove you to learn Fortran? It was a joke. I learned it as a joke. Fortran has like a lot of like foundational work in early linear algebra, and linear algebra is the foundation for a lot of neural networks. And so it was just a joke. I learned it. But what I did for Microsoft as a machine learning engineer intern was a lot of like meetings, like preparing documents, like, hey, I need to collect this data. And if you do any sort of data work at a big company, you need to like get it reviewed before you access the data. Like, hey, like, can I get sign off on this? And this happens at like if going back to an earlier question, how do you weigh which internship to choose? This is something, there's a lot of bureaucracy at big companies. So just be mindful of that. That my internship, the hardest parts was putting my requirements into words. That was like the hardest part of my day-to-day work, was like every morning during stand-up, tell my manager, hey, I need you to give me access to this part of the Azure so I can do this thing, so I can scrape this data for the model, et cetera, et cetera. In like internships, it's always been like, you learn and you skill on the internship. I've never once been like come into an internship knowing everything I needed to. And I don't think I've met anyone else who's had either. Like at most you might know the language. Like if it's Python, you might know Python, but you might not know like the libraries they use, or you might not know Azure or something like that. So it's just a lot of learning, a lot of Stack Overflow. you get really good at Googling because of internships. You get really good at knowing how to Google technical problems and hiccups. So, but yeah, a lot of day-to-day is writing stuff up. It's not coding all day, unfortunately.
Yeah, with my Explore internship, we started off with definitely focusing on PM stuff, like Brian was talking about, where it was like gathering requirements and talking to customers, and then gathering some more requirements and reiterating on that, because a lot of times the customers don't even know what they want exactly until they see something that they don't want. So it was a lot of paperwork and planning on how to communicate mostly. We were given a lot of freedom other than literally meeting with like all of our mentors and managers. Like those meetings were set up by other people. We had the freedom to plan out our entire days to do whatever we wanted in whatever way we wanted. So we had to make our timelines, our Gantt charts, all of that, and figure out how are we going to document everything, how are we going to meet, and how we like actually going to allocate like one person to doing this and another person to doing that. So that was a lot of independence that I was almost like kind of scared about, but it definitely helped me gain a lot more confidence in myself, because throughout the internship, we just kept on, as we said before, reiterating on the process. We kept on learning and getting better. Like, oh yeah, this thing we did last week, that was pretty helpful for, like, I didn't know what to do here. But I looked back in our documentation, now it's helpful. So we just kept on reiterating on that process, and we set up our daily like meeting schedules because it was online. And when your entire team is new and doesn't know any of the technologies that you're using now, you need to be able to talk with each other. So we set up voice calls and everything. And what we worked on specifically was data visualization for the quality team under Xbox Studios. So they work with making sure that all of the games you guys play can actually work, and telling the developer teams what they did wrong, which they love. So because they have to work with so much data, they got us to create custom visualizations for this data analysis software that they had, because they had like such specific goals that they needed defined that like default software can't do for you. We were on board to do that. So I've never done anything like that ever before. We used TypeScript and R. That was what we eventually landed on as using. We had to figure out how to actually develop the project as part of our PM obligation. We had to not only get the requirements, but get, okay, how are we actually going to accomplish this? So it was front to back, like, or not front to back, end to end knowledge of like everything on the project. We had like one main mentor, but also had other mentors for other areas of the project that our mentor thought like maybe they could get more help in like this big picture area, or get more help in this data visualization area. And as Anthony mentioned, since we were working on data visualization, we needed data to test with. And that was a pain, a large pain. But dealing with those sort of hiccups and like not knowing what to do and figuring out how to Google and being okay with coming to others and asking for help is like mainly what you get out of it, because you come in, at least a lot of people that I've seen come in not confident, they don't really know what's going on, but they're also kind of scared of asking because they don't want to seem like not knowledgeable, but they're there to help. And companies will also have like workshops and opportunities for you to go to like online, and I think in person, meet with other areas of the company and see what they're doing. So you can say hi to them as well, even though you can't say hi to them in the hallway.
I just wanted to share something real quick before we wrap up. I've been like applying to a bunch of companies, and I had a friend tell me like how they're keeping track of their applications, and I just wanted to share it with you guys to see if you might benefit from it. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Also, I'm going to link in chat. This is a platform called Airtable. It's kind of like a spreadsheet app that you can. Okay, hopefully you can see this. So it's like a big spreadsheet, except it has rich fields in it, basically. And I have like an internship grind table that has all of like the companies that I'm applying to, what stage in the process I'm at, and like just some notes on them. And I know a lot of people don't have like good ways of tracking this, so I just figured I'd mention it. And if anybody likes this kind of view here, they could, you know, get this. It's free. You just sign up for it. There's actually let me see if I can open the chat real quick. I can paste. This is one of my friends. Oh, that's the same link I just pasted. 1 second. I'll stop sharing. I have a link from one of my friends that kind of works with Airtable. They have a referral link that if you want to use, it would be really cool. Yeah, I get resume rejected a lot. So if you click on that link, you can just like sign up for it. And I think you might be able to use the previous link to maybe copy my table. I'm not sure. If you can't, I might be able to like help you set it up if you want to ask me privately. Also, I'm on Discord with the handle Terra #2248. So if you have any questions about it, you can ask me later. Just like add me on Discord or something, or message me. But yeah, I just thought I'd share that in case anybody might benefit from it.
One really important question that I really want to be answered on the recording. Someone asked if what if you have a disability and if you should disclose that or not. This is obviously a really sensitive subject, and I don't want to call out if anyone here has dealt with disabilities, but I do have a friend who has a pretty severe disability, and it does impact their work. And they struggled to find a place of work that could accommodate to their disability, and meant they couldn't work normal working hours. So depending on the severity, like if you feel comfortable mentioning that during interviews, feel free. If not, definitely talk to somebody with more experience on this, because I know I don't. But most companies have been pretty accommodating. My friend didn't have to look very hard. Like the second company they ever interned with, and every company thereafter has been super accommodating with their disability. So if you feel comfortable disclosing and it's something that will impact your work, it's up to your discretion if you want to disclose. If not, there are channels within companies to do that. So don't be afraid to reach out to HR if you don't know what to do, but you shouldn't be discriminated for your disability or not given an opportunity because of it. So wanted to make sure that got on recording.
Thank you, Anthony. We appreciate that a lot. All right, so as we are wrapping up, there are still a lot of dangling questions on the Slido. If you guys want to kind of rapid fire, look at one and just kind of like answer them real quickly within like a couple seconds, you can do that. A good one is Ethan asks, if I'm to do one thing to prepare for a hackathon, what would it be with zero experience? Just one thing that you would do before a hackathon.
Calling on Anthony.
One thing you do to prepare for a hackathon with zero experience, start looking if the hackathon has published what their tracks are, like Shell Hacks is this weekend, and they have published what their tracks are. Definitely sleep before the hackathon. Make sure you have a nice dinner too, believe it or not, that's important. But one thing to do before you prepare is look at what tracks they're going to go for and think if you can find a track. That's a hard question. This is a difficult one.
Watch the Intro to Hackathons workshop we did. It is a whole 2-hour discussion on it all. You don't have to watch it all. You can skim through and find, the information you're looking for. It is on our YouTube and ACM's YouTube.
Terrell, the guy who hosted that, I think there were some other people. He's a hackathon champ. So actual hackathon champ. He can answer this question better than I can. And he's in the NiHacks Discord. So if you want to message him, we can tag him after.
Yes, and that goes for everyone here. I'm sure everyone here is definitely more than willing to answer you guys' questions in our Discord. Reach out for questions. We're all here to help you out. That's why we pulled this together. Do you guys want to kind of look at the Slido and answer questions as it goes, or do you just kind of want to wrap it up? because we don't want to keep you guys for too long.
I'd say that if you have any questions about personal experiences for internships, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. I posted my Discord in chat. I'll post it again. But you can PM me anytime. I don't mind, and I'll get back to you whenever, as soon as possible.
To add on to the preparing for hackathons with no coding experience, I before I was a CS major, I went to some hackathons and I didn't know how to code. So I think that what I found was helpful was figure out ways you can add value. So if that means taking the lead and forming the team, if that means figuring out some basics for graphic design, so you could make how the app will look, because chances are nobody's going to know how to do that, and the team is probably just going to wing it. That could mean you could come up with some ideas, because a lot of the times teams just don't have ideas and they spend the first 6 hours of the hackathon just brainstorming on what they should build. You could also talk about how you'll prepare the demo. You'll be the person that's responsible for making a slideshow to explain what the app does, and or you'll communicate what it does, get a good understanding of what the app does. You could also do the business side. You could do market research, figure out how this app can really help people, help businesses, be the one that's able to answer those questions. There's a lot of things you can do that that are beyond just being the one that's programming the application. So I would just try to think about how you could add value from other angles, because chances are that's not usually how hackers are thinking. So if you do just do a little bit of prep work, then it can go a long way.
Thanks, Brian. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here, unless any of our hosts have any quick last things to add.
I'm about to reach the full transformation, so yeah, we gotta end this.
This human form is all but faded away. But yeah, so thank you all for coming to our internship panel. We hope you learned something. This will be available on YouTube within about 24 hours. As always, all of our hosts will be available on Discord if you want to have any questions answered. We're sorry if we weren't able to get your question answered. You can definitely ask it on the Discord. Someone will definitely answer you. And kind of a parting word, the biggest thing about internships, be vigilant. Try to find these opportunities, because they're emailed to you sometimes. You see some people from the CS department at UCF, they're sending you emails for opportunities. For example, Google had something for UCF today for both the STEP internship and a full software engineering internship, where you were able to kind of interact with the recruiter and they were going to explain the technical interview to you. So just watch out for those things. Go to clubs, share opportunities. We have an opportunities channel in the Discord. We're our best friends. We are the people who give ourselves opportunities, share things. Go to the internship fairs. There's a career fair happening this week or next week or something. Network with all your peers. And yeah, I've been talking for too long. Everyone's tired. Thank you all for coming. Thank you again to our hosts. You guys are great. And yeah, take care, everyone.
Thanks for coming, everybody, and good luck.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
good luck, guys. Y'all got this.
Bye.
Bye bye.